Hello and welcome to Finding Your North Star, the HGKC podcast series where we talk to prominent business people about their experiences and challenges of innovation. I'm Peter Quintana, and what you're about to hear is an interview with Graham Preston of SFL Group, recorded at the HGKC Roundtable on Business Risk. It starts with me introducing Graham with a brief bio.
He's the co-founder of Sound Foundation, now SFL Group, live events production company with a sales and installations department. He's helped the company over the last 25 years into the organisation it is today, with over 70 staff and a turnover pre-COVID of £12 million. He comes from a background in retail management, but he took his passion for all things sound and began working in live events and was able to develop his hobby into a career, delivering various types of productions as a business built a portfolio of clients over a number of years. With the company growing, Graham's role evolved from sound engineer to business manager, and he's had to deal with clients, logistics and HR, and overseeing the legal and financial aspects of the company. So he's now semi-retired, with the everyday business running in the hands of the next generation. So welcome, Graham, and thank you very much for joining us this morning. So when we first started talking about this roundtable, it was quite a long time ago now, we were still able to be face-to-face and go to live events. Much has changed since then, hasn't it? So can you give a sense of the impact this has had on you, please, to start?
Yes, of course. Good morning, everyone. As a lot of the other guys have been saying, the impact has been massive for us in events because they stopped. So our turnover went from 12 million to a few 100,000 if we're lucky. So it's been a massive hit. And obviously the initial few weeks was the shock of what does that mean? How does that work? How are we going to cope? Obviously with the furlough scheme coming in, that was a major benefit to us. And one of our primary things was how do we retain our staff? Because we see them as our primary asset, really. They're all key people who over the years we've acquired and have become very much what we call SFL DNA people. So they're very much in tune with where we're at. They're the right sort of people that we want to have on board. So how do we keep them going forward? We didn't know how long this was going to be. And the other thing was very much that the business will carry on. So that was another challenge for us, really. But yeah, it's been massive impact, massive.
It has. So you were able to take advantage of the government grants and loans. I mean, I think we've kind of passed the initial complexity of that, and most people understand furlough and CBILS and bounce back loans and things. There's talk of a second wave of that. I mean, do you have a view on what that might be? I mean, I know you've taken advantage of them so far, and that's one of the reasons why you've been able to retain pretty much everybody on your books, haven't you?
Yes, we've obviously furlough became my responsibility. So my semi-retirement of half to 1 day a week has suddenly ramped back up again to 2 or 3 days a week in the first few months just to implement this whole system. But yeah, CBILS, we've just had that agreed. Rates breaks we got for most of our premises, grants for premises as well, not all of them. And again, different councils have had different approaches. And also then tying up or deferring payments to HMRC, tax, VAT, that sort of stuff. So agreeing with them, and it has been about talking to them in advance, not letting it go wrong and then them chase you. And in fact, we've had comments from a number of them saying, this is really good that you're talking to us before you do what you do. And that's great, so that's been a positive thing, actually talking to them up front. So that's what's happened there. As far as what goes forwards, yes, we hope there'll be some positive news today, because unlike a lot of industries where people have got back to work in some shape, size or form, we have very few people going back to work at the moment. I'll come on to some of the ways that we've managed to utilise them going forwards. But yeah, we hope there's some positive news coming out of Rishi Sunak today.
If he wants to maintain his reputation, he needs to be doing that, doesn't he? So we heard, I think Bex used the word pivot earlier, and it's often used, and I know Kim and I both think it's pretty overused at the moment, but it does reflect the fact that businesses need to think slightly differently about the way they're doing business, and some are being obliged to just to survive in some senses, and I think all of you in the event sector are pretty much in that place. But others are being quite innovative in the way they're reframing their businesses and thriving, in fact. So with such a serious impact on the event sector, what have you been doing? I know we've had a couple of conversations about areas where you've explored alternative ways of doing things. So do you want to give a bit of insight into
Yes.
that?
Of course, firstly, we have a sales and installation department, which in some ways at the beginning we thought wasn't going to be affected because we could carry on doing that. Of course, very quickly you realise clients are going, no, we don't want installation teams on site because they didn't understand the risks. So actually the whole of the sales and install department shut down as well for the first few months. That has re-established and is working full on now, which is great. We also have a set building department, so a workshop and a team of people. How could we think of other products to build and sell? We thought through that a lot. Ideas, nothing was really financially viable, and then it was about trying to get the customers to do that. So then it was, well, what else can we do in the world we're in? Well, we're a live sound, lighting and video predominantly is what we do. So we're the preferred AV provider for the Royal Albert Hall, so we do all their video related stuff. So the proms the other week, we had screens in, that sort of thing. So what we've done there is just to develop the broadcast side. Obviously Zoom and virtual calls became a thing. So how could we develop that a little bit more, which is what we've been doing. We'd also just signed 2 new premises at the beginning of COVID, one of which was going to be a warehouse. That's been built as a video studio and is now almost fully utilised for video shoots, both live broadcasts and capture for subsequent transmission for various clients and new clients. So that's an area which has helped us develop. We also looked as a local cinema that has a massive car park, so we looked at the idea of drive-in cinema approached the venue, looked at all that. It didn't take off because there were too many issues from their point of view, so that didn't work. But it's been about that, looking at those things. The other area which has been a major plus to us, there's a big lighting company called White Light, who have a production department, did a similar sort of turnover in productions that we did, and they decided to disband the production department, and through a relationship building exercise from our management team and them, we now have taken on all their production work. So again, at the moment, it's not a lot, but it is nevertheless adding massively to the small amount of work that we're gradually starting to build up on. So that's been a major plus as well.
Where are you with the clients that you were working with before lockdown? Are you confident that they will come back as events come back into those areas?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of our business over the years has come from repeat business recommendations. It's working with clients. We've never really done any advertising. It's all been built from relationships. So anybody who's been working with us will continue to work with us when they've got work that needs doing, and we've been in communication with most of them over the time, just to be not make sure we're keeping in touch, making sure that any opportunities, even if it's slightly diverse from what we were doing, we can pick up work that way. So some of our BDM team are really quite good at that, so they've been knocking on doors and keeping conversations. So yeah, absolutely.
Great. I remember one of our conversations, I think the very first conversation we had when we were planning this, you telling me you felt you were very risk averse. But the more we've spoken, the more I've come to realise that actually you've built your business on very, dare I say, sound foundations, no pun intended. That you actually have quite a robust process for risk management, don't you? And that's one reason that as a company you can effectively lose almost all of your revenues, what you've done, and still talk about surviving. So can you elaborate a little bit on the kind of the processes that you have in place that have become embedded in the business to think about risk on a wider basis?
Yeah, I think it all started from it was a hobby for me. I had a proper job, as we always talk about it, whilst running the hobby. So over about 5 to 10 years, I'd amassed a certain amount of kit to do all the work I needed to do. So at the point that myself and my business partner bumped into each other and decided we were going to do something, we then did another few years, just both of us running ordinary jobs and doing sound for fun. So of course we're investing in kit, we're building up a business, we're building up clients. So at the point that he gave his day job up and then I gave my day job up a year later, we'd already got the kit we needed to do the job. So we were always cash rich in that we weren't borrowing money to buy kit. We were just doing it from what we had. And then as we got money in, we'd use it to buy more kit. And then we'd plan how we spent that money. So we've always been really prudent and cash rich as a result. So that's one of the things that's helped, is that we do have cash in the bank. The other thing that we've done is I've always been somebody who learns on everything that we do. So whether it's doing a gig or whether it's cooking a meal, at the end of it, I'm going, now, what can I do better? Because for me, you can always improve. our strap line is excellence in production. And my personal sort of motto has been striving for excellence, this thing of saying, well, what can I do? So I cook a meal, at the end I go, now, what could be better next time? Even if it's brilliant, what could be better? So I've always had that sort of approach of almost debriefing at the end of every event, every dinner, every whatever it might be. So it's always learning from what happened, how we can improve. And one of the examples of this, and you highlighted it, Peter, was this thing of near misses, was the fact that if we have any incidents, and I'm not necessarily talking about physical accidents, I'm just talking about things where something you go, flip me, wow, what happened there, is we take that very seriously. We look at it and we learn how to recognise it and what it is that's happened. And then we plan for what happens if it happens again. But we also plan to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So it's, and that's just been a natural thing for me, that it's just how I look at everything. And it includes things like when we've had bad debts. We don't get many of those, but it's like, okay, so how did that come about? Oh, I see, because we didn't check the ID, or we didn't take the payment in the right way, or we didn't do some pretty remedial work that would have established that person wouldn't have gone bad debt. So it's just learning as we go. I think that's a simple thing, and applying what you learn.
Yeah, it's near missing one of the sort of regular agenda items when you got together with your board.
It is. I mean, it is in the sense that we're always looking at how we can improve stuff. We don't generally. We have very few near misses in that sense. I think over the last 5 years we've had 2 physical accidents in the workplace that we've had to deal with. And other than that, it's been things like we've just said, it's been customers who haven't returned kit. And it's like, what can we learn from there, and how can we make sure that doesn't happen again? So it's more just an ethos that we are constantly thinking of, how can we improve? What can we learn from what's just happened?
Okay, thank you. I know you've now stepped back from the company and are working part-time, although possibly not quite as part-time as you were, maybe.
Yeah.
As you move into semi-retirement. So can you give an insight into your personal approach to risk? And you kind of hinted and alluded to some of it along the way, but do you want to enlarge on that a little bit?
Yes, I think Mark, my partner, and I realised about 15 years ago that this hobby that had become a job, a career and a business, how did we get out of it? Because as an events production company, at that point, we didn't really think we could sell it. So what could we do? And the only conclusion we came to was that it had to keep running, but it had to keep running without us. So then we started the plan of, well, how do we get out? And that initially meant starting to take more time out of the business to bring on the next generation of management team. We'd already identified 2 or 3 of the team who were 15, 20 years younger than us, who we could see potential in. So it was bringing them on. And by us stepping back, it enforced them to take more of a front seat. We promoted Tom to MD 6 years ago. Mark and I stepped down from being joint MDs at that point. And in the recent years, it's been identifying a replacement for me in terms of the role that I've been doing. And that we've now found. And the guy is working alongside the existing management team, which is great. So it's been stepping back, gradual reduction in days, and also then the share sale. So how do we sell our value in the business? And that's been done via management buyout standard sort of setup, really. So yes, so that's my approach in how do we make it secure for the next generation? How do we keep it going? Because obviously there's a vested interest from our point of view, but how do we learn to take more of a back seat? And actually both for me and Mark, because we're both key people that wanted to be very, very much at the forefront of everything, learning to step back, learning to have space to do something else with our lives, because actually that's the thing, is we can work flat out until we hit retirement. And the number of people I know who retire and then drop dead because they don't have a purpose anymore. So that thing has given us space. He's now retired. He retired a year or so ago. Semi-retired, does a few consultancy days, and is very busy doing all sorts of different stuff. I've taken up a role as finance manager for a local charity, which is run by a friend of mine. So that's really given me, in a voluntary capacity, an opportunity to do something else and add some of my learnings from over the years. So yeah, I don't know whether that gives you my personal approach to risk. Maybe there's an element of that in there, but yeah, that's where that is.
Planning and foresight, really, right? So I think so. Finally, then, I mean, we talked about Risk is a potential opportunity as well as a threat. We like to think of it in that way, and we talk to our clients about the importance of risk management as a process, as a regular sort of item on the board agenda on fairly frequently to support that kind of idea. So how do you as a business, or how have you as a business approached risk management? And you've talked about a number of the sort of things that you've been involved in. So you've been cash rich. I know you don't have much in the way of debt, other than now the CBIL stuff that you've taken on. But prior to that, what's been your approach at board level?
Again, we've sort of come out earlier. I've never considered me as ever taking any risks. I am not a man who takes any form of risks. That's how I felt in our conversations, as we've already talked about, the reality that it wasn't that I didn't take risks, I was just risk averse, and it was about being careful. So it's about taking risks in a managed way. So it is about, well, if we are going to start borrowing, which we have done because we've realised from financial points of view, sometimes borrowing the money makes sense, then we borrow it in a very managed way. We've kept our borrowing to turnover ratio very, very low, again, to mitigate any potential problems in a scenario like we've hit at the moment. So that's really it. It's just about being careful. It's being aware of all the potential pitfalls and looking at them and making sure we don't jump before we know what we're jumping into. I think that's probably as clear as it can be, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, brilliant. Thank you for that.
Well, at that point, we opened up for general discussion and Q&A. So it just remains for me to thank Graham for his candour and his insight. If you'd like to find out more about how we could help you with your risk management during these difficult times, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Visit our website, www.hgkc.co.uk. Thank you